And, there are places that I still don't fully understand what we're saying, right? And again, I do feel like this is a place where I think maybe I'm leaning a lot on what I've read about the book or what I read in the back of the book, but I think it is starting. So, one of the things that I would say this book does pretty well is it starts to accumulate meaning. I think that goes back to what you were saying before, is that he's good at sort of putting these things together. We have these themes that keep coming back around and these images that keep coming back around. And over time, they accumulate into something larger. And that's what we like to
Right.
see.
And constantly ground, so like when you have that, then it's like almost like a rope where you can go off into the ether,
Yeah,
and
and there are places that
pull
still
random shit out.
feel.
But you're still tethered to like the ground. You're still tethered to the real world in some way.
Yeah, and even something like song lyrics can help you really do that. Um, I will say there are places where I still feel a little bit ungrounded. And again, some of that might be owed to the fact that I've only read this once. I'm a big believer that, every poem deserves a second reading. Unless it's trash, then maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. Or it could just be, to the fact that it doesn't quite work. Like, I mean, that's what I'd say about a lot of his stuff is even if when I think it doesn't work, I can still see what he's trying to do. And I appreciate that. Because like you can kind of see where it's coming from. It's not just like so out of left field that you're like, wait a minute, what? It's like, oh, you're trying to really broaden not just what the language can do, but what the space of the page can do, what the line structure can do, what like all of these, what bringing in references to song lyrics can do. Like there's a lot of that. I mean it usually works.
Well, it's always interesting to see a poet who pulls from a lot of different sources, because you're also sort of depending on those sources to create meaning for the poem, right?
Right. And then you want to talk about that? Like
I'm.
where's the line
What do you mean?
in terms of, well, I know we said we talk about this like erasures or something that he has with these redacted
Oh yeah, yeah. There's
but just like
definitely.
where's the line, right? So like how much can you rely on this outside thing before it starts to weaken, what we would call the poem or some aspect of
Right.
the
Well,
poem
and
if
I
not the
think
whole
that's
thing.
really dependent, right? Like, again, you don't want to hit the reader over the head with it. It's annoying. It's like, yes, we get it, right? Sometimes, like, and you can see this like with certain poems that might have historical references. I think that's probably the biggest one, if you like allude to something historical, or if uh, especially if like you're writing in the voice of someone historical, you can hit people over the head with like the thing that you're trying to say about it, and that
He
can be
does a little bit
true.
of that in his second book, yeah, The Blind
And
Huber, because
anyone
it's
can
about
do
like a
that,
real person.
like, I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't have to be a historical thing, it could be just about
Right.
anything. I think when you're depending on something outside of the poem to make the poem make sense, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
I
well
think
that's my
that's the
thing is like,
line. I think you can't
yeah.
depend on what isn't on the page to, help the reader understand it. Right? I think that's risky. And I think, I like, and we can just sort of talk about it now. I think it's one of the later, maybe what, it's at like the halfway